Moments that destroyed families on paternity court.
I love him, but he doesn't realize that his lack of trust affects me so harsh. I felt like this was our last resort.
To try to save this marriage.
Yes, Your Honor.
Because you want to be with him.
Yes, Your Honor.
Are not the father.
I told you. Don't cry now.
What was more painful for Miss Davies than her canceled wedding? The paternity question of her son, Jaden. Moreover, after being with her fiancé for 5 years, rather than trusting her, he now believed in rumors. And to fix her relationship, she needed a DNA test.
After being with Mr. Hunter for 5 years, he's now given into lies and rumors about your past and is now denying your son Jaden. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
You say you've never fully accepted that Jaden is your son because Miss Davies has a questionable past.
Yes, Your Honor.
Both parties had a pretty good time, but soon both of their phones started popping up with flirtatious messages, and without knowing the truth, they knew the parallel mistrust was already built between them. But the problem only began when Miss Davies had a relationship with another guy.
Well, Your Honor, me and Devon, like you stated, have been together for 5 years, almost 6. And due to all the rumors, he no longer wants to get married. He has cut off our wedding plans. So I'm here today to prove that he is the father of Jade.
You called off the wedding plans, Mr. Hunter?
Yes, Your Honor. Things I've seen, I don't really trust the things she do.
After the baby trouble had arrived, Mr. Hunter was not ready to accept this reality and was fueled with doubts. He opened up all the rumors. He knew that the plaintiff was promiscuous to hop in and out of people's cars, and Miss Davies had to explain her actions.
I did go to parties. As far as me hooking up with the guys at a party, that is false, Your Honor.
I
But
didn't
you
hear just one.
Also, just that when you told him you were pregnant, you told him that there was no other possible father. And then you've admitted in court today that that statement was untrue because you weren't 100% sure.
A liar.
First, she boldly claimed him the father, and now she was unsure? I smell a lie here. Following her lies, Mr. Hunter shared that once she thought she had left her place and brought another guy and girl to her room, but her plan was spoiled as the defendant was ready to catch her red-handed, and the judge asked her explanation.
I did let him come over because he was drinking. He said he needs to sleep it off for a while. And so I did come with the guy and the girl to my house. We did plan on having sexual encounter. Me and the guy and the girl.
Now, is this a different guy from the guy you said that you were
Yes.
messing around with?
Yes, Your Honor.
Her actions were so against her claim. How did she think he would have trusted her in the first place? Girl, it doesn't happen like that. But instead of admitting her mistake, she still argued that she also deserved to have fun and then broke down into tears on all the accusations.
It's not the first time. I caught her in the kitchen. We sitting in the living room one day, and then she gets up and walks to the kitchen, and she's in the kitchen for like 10, 15 minutes. She's supposed to came back already. I walk around to the kitchen, and she's down there standing in between this guy's legs.
She is the mother of this 4-year-old little boy, and we don't know who his father is.
Judge is spot on right. He witnessed all this behavior with his eyes. Now you can't easily remove it from his head. Now, with all the dirt being thrown out, Ms. Davies also tried to bring him down as he intentionally missed her son's birthday party, and the defendant had his own reasons.
If I
Doesn't
would've
matter.
If I
You're
would've
still
came
supposed
to
to
the
show up
party,
to
Your
his
Honor,
birthday
if
party.
I came to the birthday party,
But
she
if
would have
this
been jumping
potentially
all
could-
over me in front of all the guests at the birthday party.
But if this potentially could be your biological child, why wouldn't you just show up at the party? It's not about Miss Davies, it's about Jade.
I
You didn't even
understand,
show up
but
when I had the
I
baby.
didn't want to mess the party up, because
Whoa, he must be a hard partier. But now, with a girlfriend and son, this lifestyle is dangerous, man. Well, putting aside his party stuff, the plaintiff brought some good evidence to strengthen her claim. But one of them had a scientific fact.
They both have curly hair, nice hair. My hair is nothing like that. My hair is nappy. I need a perm.
Both of their hair look a mess, but I'm gonna give the baby a pass.
All right.
And I understand you're looking at texture of hair. Don't say good hair, baby. All hair, if you have some, is good.
Carelessness and a failing attempt at revenge turned out badly for Miss Davies, as now she only found herself guilty and stuck in problems, and further creating more trouble for her son. So, to find out the real father in all this mess, the judge had to call for results.
It has been determined by this court, Mr. Hunter, you are not the father.
I told you. I don't cry now.
Miss Strickland's marriage was hanging on by a thread that could break any time. Why? Because her husband doubted her daughter. And worse, the only way she could save her relationship was with positive results, or else she and her child will be left longing for a man to protect them. Let's see what her fate has decided for her.
My husband and I argue a lot. We have problems with trust. It's very difficult for me because I love him with all my heart and I would never do anything to betray his trust, ever. I need these results to prove to him that this is his little girl, this is his daughter.
So,
After being good friends for 5 years, Mr. Strickland finally started his relationship with the plaintiff and was very happy that he even gave her his family ring. But the trust issues of his previous relationship and some events made him question his trust this time. Then, Mrs. Strickland shared the reason for the doubts.
My parents had taken my children for 11 months while I was trying to obtain a home for us and I was looking for a job. I went back and forth from where we were living in Dyersburg to Memphis, back and forth. He thought that maybe I was seeing other people while I was going down to Memphis to see my children.
Okay, so just some distance created trust issues for them. That's hard for me to believe. But his suspicions proved right when Mrs. Strickland's behavior changed all of a sudden, and she wouldn't want to get close to her husband. But when finding out about the pregnancy, he was happy.
After about the first couple months, it started to wear off because I started doing the calculations of when she was pregnant. We had tried for over a year to get pregnant. We decided we're not going to try no more. We're tired of trying. If it happens, it happens. And then a very short period of time after that, she's pregnant.
and that was right at the time when she started to travel.
Yeah,
A sudden pregnancy after failed attempts had become a huge problem for him to digest. But even with all these weird behaviors, he still signed the birth certificate. But he never knew that his signature would break his heart again.
when they first brought the birth certificate in, I had signed the paperwork. They refused it because me and her were not legally married. She was still legally married to her ex-husband. They brought in the second birth certificate. She requested to have her maiden name put on it. She signs the paperwork, they send it off, we wait in the mail for it to come in, and all of a sudden, I see the birth certificate and this is what I see.
What happened? Did you forget his name? Never mind, I was joking. But this one created doubt for me as well. With this, Mrs. Strickland was in trouble, but she replied that due to her marriage with another guy, she couldn't give the defendant's name to their daughter. Furthermore, about contacting the court for this issue, the baby daddy revealed the plaintiff's shady behavior again.
I've tried, Your Honor, yes.
You say she has not?
She tells me repeatedly she has, but I don't think she has. Researched myself, and I found out I literally could walk in there and within 6 months have it done. All I had to do, I could file a petition for the court for a paternity test. Once it was situated and it was proven whether I was the father or not, I go to the county clerk, pay my money.
So again, all the fingers are listed against Mrs. Strickland. I don't know whether it's her responsibility or guilt. It was the real problem here. Following the same question, the judge asked the plaintiff, and she revealed even more complexity of the situation.
My ex would not comply. He'd disappear. My husband knows that I love him, but he doesn't realize that his lack of trust affects me so harsh. I felt like this was our last resort.
To try to save this marriage
Yes, Your Honor.
because you want to be with him.
Yes, Your Honor.
Well, her answer was very hopeless, and I don't see the birth certificate getting changed so easily. Next up, it was revealed that Mrs. Strickland was sending flirty texts and some hot nude pictures that her husband took for himself to another guy. And now the judge only wanted an explanation from the defendant.
I look at the text messages from his ex-girlfriend. They had a really great day and that she'd like to do it again. He'd spent all day the day before with his ex-girlfriend. And instead of doing something that foolish, I sent a picture of myself naked to a ex-coworker. I didn't physically spend any time.
Some misunderstandings do add up to make big issues in the marriage afterward. Like here, the Stricklands were stuck in the paternity issue so bad that they couldn't move forward and only wanted the results so they could save their marriage.
It has been determined by this court, Mr. Strickland, you are the father. Are you happy to hear that?
Very.
How do you feel, Ms. Strickland?
I knew he was the father. I've never had a doubt.
Denial hits hard when it's thrown at your face without thinking twice about it. Still, Mr. Hayslip was not ready to tone down his anger, as he'd been forcibly paying child support for Miss Hayslip for 19 years. And now, in a heartless revenge, he wanted his name taken off the birth certificate.
And you have no idea who
or what or where or when. Just that county is all I knew, that I supposedly had a child in that county. That was showing no pictures, no dates, no name.
So when you finally got out, how did you go about finding out what this information was?
When I was released from the county, they gave me a court date. They stated the mother's name and the child's name.
The defendant said that one day he was pulled over for speeding, and there he got to know that pending child support was in his name. It was the first time he knew about his potential child, and then he revealed the error that caused all this problem.
In fact, they handcuffed me, and when they did, I was pretty mad, and I struggled a little bit with him. He was adamant about it, and I asked, well, who is it? And he's like, well, it's not coming up. All it's coming up on my computer.
Because you knew nothing.
Nothing.
Never received a notice.
They served me at the address that I lived at 3 months previous to when I moved to northern Michigan.
That's pretty scary to find out you have a child whose existence you didn't know about. But Mr. Hayslip argued that the conception dates didn't add up with Miss Hayslip's birthday, and he was right. Furthermore, the judge asked the plaintiff to speak on this matter.
My mother would tell me that he had nothing to do with me, he never wanted anything to do with me, but was trying to get with her.
As a child, what's your first memory where your mother told you?
It was around 5 she told me that he could be my father, but earlier she always said David Hayslip. And I would always ask her
She would
who
name him by name.
Yeah, I met one of the Hayslips in school, which is Courtney.
The kids turned out to be smarter than these old people. They communicated well enough to solve the puzzle. But the defendant contended his paternity, saying that Miss Hayslip didn't have his last name. And over this, the sister had to go against him to support the plaintiff.
Her mother gave her the Hayslip name once she approached junior high.
Why didn't she give her the Hayslip name when she was born then, if she's mine?
You are
Celeste's aunt.
Celeste's aunt.
David's sister.
And Mr. Hayslip's sister.
Yes.
And you are standing on this side of the podium because you obviously support Ms. Hayslip.
I never understood how mothers first beg their father's family to connect and then later ghost them without giving a proper reason. That's just stupid. Next, the defendant revealed that 2 other guys have also been tested as the father before his name was on the list, and surprisingly shared that Ms. Hayslip resembled his best friend. All these testimonies were very hard for her to listen to, so the plaintiff got a moment to share her feelings.
When he said that he would not take me because of foster care, that also hurt me so bad, because I went in foster care for 5.5 years.
So-
because he said no.
And before you were placed in foster care, they came to Mr. Hayslip and asked if he would take you.
Yeah.
And you're saying that
That's a lie.
he said no.
That's a lie.
It didn't affect me that much, but sure, as a kid, rejection can tear you apart. Furthermore, Mr. Hayslip said that regardless of his denial, he still went to look for the plaintiff, but her family never gave him the right address, and his sister also supported him here because she also had been in a similar situation.
And I seem to agree with him because me, to be supposedly aunt too, I'd done the same thing. There would be times that I would call her mother myself, beg her more or less to let me know something about her. Well, let me tell you an incident. There was a time I was going to take her to the fair. Well, her mother gives me a phone call telling me that she was going with her other aunt, her sister. So I just okay and left it alone.
Oh, that's cruel! And to think it only affected Miss Hayslip's innocent feelings as a kid genuinely hurt me. Then the defendant said that he had other children with different mothers, but all of his kids have a relationship with each other, and Miss Hayslip cut him off to express her resentment.
Actions for my mother come towards me.
But what have you been involved with since you've been a teenager?
A lot.
Right.
I've gotten in contact with her.
No. I'm talking about as far as trouble.
College. I had a job
How many times you been arrested?
twice.
For what? You think I want that influence around my other children that are going to college and going to school?
You know what? Let me go to the result.
Really? I mean, we know you have a paternity issue, but you didn't have to attack her personally. The judge was so right to condemn him for his useless argument and wanted to read the results. But the defendant had more coldness to show for Miss Hayslip.
Any way this turns out, I ask that she takes my last name away from her. The other thing, if it turns out she's not mine, I ask for all child support money that's ever been paid to her to be returned to me.
First
Even
off,
if she proves to be your daughter, you don't want her to have your name.
No. The point that I'm making with that is her mother's side of the family. I don't want associated with my last name at all.
The disownment was not new to see in this court, but the coldness he showed towards Miss Hayslip and the girl she brought up was hurtful to watch, as, in all this story, it wasn't her fault. So to end her heartache, the envelope had to be opened fast.
when it comes to Celeste Hayslip. Mr. Hayslip, you are her father. Well, at least now we know your money spent was not in vain. And you have a beautiful young lady over here